A very good day to you all, ladies and gentlemen. Allow me to welcome you at the joint press conference called on the occasion of the meeting of 5 ministers of foreign affairs and Ukraine. So I'll pass the floor to Minister Korczok. A very good day to you all, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, to start with, allow me to welcome here in Bratislava my colleagues from the C5 group from the Czech Republic, Hungary, Austria, Slovenia, and I'm very happy that the invitation was also accepted to the meeting of this group for the first time. A colleague, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, Mr. Dmytro Kuleba. I'd like to inform you that the informal format C5 was established last year, and it arrived from the necessity that we all experience as the consequence of the COVID-19 pandemic, when all of a sudden we faced very hard reality that we had to restrict freedoms, whether at home, in order to save the lives and protect the lives of citizens, and also restrictions related to the freedom of movement, basically restricting life over borders as we were used to it before the pandemic occurred. Of course, for us here in the Central European space, this was a big challenge, how to eliminate as much as possible the consequences of these restrictions. And therefore, this informal group was established, titled C5, C as Central Europe. Since last year, we, the 5 ministers, experienced COVID pandemic, and many of us did personally experience the COVID-19 disease, those who had been infected, and I believe I'm the only one who was not infected by the COVID-19. By the virus of the COVID-19 disease. And, you know, it was really an oscillating experience. First, we had to close cross-border movement, then we eased the restrictions, then again it was closed, and today we hope this is the beginning of the time when this opening and easing of restrictions will be permanent. And we do hope that the lifting of the measures in these countries will be permanent, and we will only really tune up all the measures that will help us move across borders. Today our meeting was broken down in 2 parts. The first part covered the easing up of restrictions. Of course, every country has accepted and approved its own measures. And then the second part of the meeting was related to the possibilities of travel. All the countries of the C5 format are the member states of the EU, and for us it is important to travel as soon as possible across the European Union, but this travel must be safe. This is why the European Union has been in the process of adopting the Green Certificate, and we hope that it will be introduced by the end of June, before the summer season. And also another item discussed was that by the time when the certificate will be valid, is there a possibility that we will conclude bilateral or regional agreements that will allow for mutual recognition of vaccination certificates that would protect our citizens and allow for travel of our citizens? So this is what we talked about, and on behalf of the Slovak Republic, I'd like to say that I am going to inform the Minister of Healthcare of the Slovak Republic about the content of today's meeting, about how these countries are opening up And also about the fact that maybe Slovakia should also consider to allow our citizens to safely travel. Of course, those that have been vaccinated, in the case they wish to travel before the European certificate is in place. I'm personally very glad that Minister Kuleba was with us. We talked about the situation in Ukraine regarding the pandemic. So the situation there is hopeful, but a big part of our discussion was about the political situation in Ukraine, particularly in Donbas, the eastern part of Ukraine. So we talked about the prospects of the solution to the conflict in the eastern part of Ukraine. And on behalf of Slovakia, I confirmed Slovakia's support for the sovereignty and integrity of Ukraine. Ladies and gentlemen, I took a little more time. I'm going to pass the floor to my colleagues from the C5 and Minister Kuleba. But I'd like to take this opportunity, since we talked about COVID to a great extent, that there is agreement in C5 plus Ukraine, and this is the situation that can be dealt with only with one way, and that is vaccination. Vaccination is the answer to the question when we are going to come back to normal life.
Thank you, Ivan. Thank you, colleagues. Ukraine shares Central European history and identity. We have strong political and economic bonds with Central European countries. So I did not hesitate for a second to accept the invitation to join this Central 5 format and attend the meeting together with fellow ministers and friends. We did focus on two issues. First, the first item was COVID-related, and I shared with my colleagues that Ukraine has three priorities, which is vaccination, ensuring mobility of citizens during safe mobility of citizens during pandemic, and supporting our businesses, entrepreneurs, exporters during very dire times for the economic development. These are the three fields where Ukraine is willing to cooperate with members of Central 5, with our good neighbors and partners in the European Union, to ensure the vaccination, to promote freedom of movement, and to promote trade and economic relief for our businesses. I'm grateful to my colleagues from Austria, Slovakia, Slovenia, Hungary, and the Czech Republic for a very productive discussion and for a very open conversation on both COVID and security-related issues. We paid particular attention to the Russian military buildup along the Ukrainian borders and the escalation of the security situation in the temporarily occupied territories of Ukraine. I thanked all Central 5 countries for strong support of territorial integrity and sovereignty of my country within its internationally recognized borders. In recent weeks, we had an opportunity to feel this support, the support that was not only offered to us in words, but also in the readiness to offer practical assistance to us. I informed ministers that despite Russia's announcement of the withdrawal of its troops from the borders with Ukraine, the threat of new military provocations remains imminent, and a very large number of Russian troops and military machinery remains along the border of Ukraine and in the occupied territories. I also briefed my colleagues about the Ukrainian initiative to launch the Crimea platform to bring together all countries and partners who are willing to work on the protection of human rights and the occupation of Crimea. Summing up, I can say that the pandemic has paralyzed many things, but it also paved the way for new creative initiatives and new ways and means to improve solidarity among friends and partners. And we see Central 5 initiative as one of these important elements of the new pandemic world. I propose that we engaged with Central 5 countries on all the matters of mutual interest to make Central Europe stronger, safer, and healthier place. Again, thank you, Ivan, for hosting today's meeting and inviting me. And thank you all colleagues for your steadfast support and readiness to work with Ukraine and to engage with us on all issues of mutual interest.
Thank you very much. Now, in alphabetical order, I would like to ask the Foreign Minister of Austria to come to the podium.
I dare take off the mask, maybe. Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, dear Ivan, thank you, first of all, for this kind invitation to bringing us all together. And I want to welcome very warmly in this club Jakub Kulanek, our new Czech colleague and friend. And I'm very pleased to have to say that this Central 5 initiative, which started nearly a year ago, exactly actually a year ago in Vienna, is not only continuing, it's getting stronger, it's alive and kicking, and it has been extended. With the meeting today with our Ukrainian colleague, Dmytro Kuleba, it has proven that it is a valuable political platform where we can exchange ourselves. And there are many topics where we, Central European countries, are all affected, reaching from the relations with Russia, Ukraine, transatlantic relations, COVID-19 and how to grapple with it. So there's actually room, and we could have continued for a couple of hours more discussing the common issues. And I have to say we had a very good exchange with our Ukrainian colleague Dmytro. There's no doubt that we stand very firmly behind Ukraine's integrity and territorial sovereignty, that we stand clearly side by side with the people of Ukraine, and we will continue with that. And it will continue to need clear messaging, always also towards Russia. Only with clear messages, with a clear language, will we be heard in Moscow. Austria is among those countries who would appreciate to have a functioning and live dialogue with Moscow. But for a dialogue to function, it takes two to tango. And as far as the EU-Russia relations are concerned, we regret that for the time being, dialogue seems to be not on the prime agenda from our Russian friends. As far as the pandemic is concerned, which also obviously was a bigger part of our discussion today, I believe we all share one common goal: to enable the maximum of normality for our lives and for our citizens by this summer. The green certificate and vaccination are our exit ticket to this normality. And we strongly support the work on the European level on the certificate, but we all agree that as an interim step, we will look into bilateral and regional agreements. And we need these agreements ASAP, as soon as possible, because that's what our people, what our citizens expect, and we have to deliver. Mobility is not a luxury in the 21st century, it is a fundamental right and a necessity. Let me just, as a last point, make a point on the situation, the current developments in Israel and the Gaza Strip. I'm deeply shocked and concerned at the reports of the mob violence and the lynching of Jews and Arab citizens in Israel. Such violence must stop immediately. All citizens of Israel deserve to live in peace and security, and I fully agree with the statement of Prime Minister Netanyahu: this violence is not Israel. Nothing justifies that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. I would like to pass the floor to the Foreign Minister of Czech Republic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to address you in the Czech language, but the organizers asked me to speak in English, and it will also make the situation easier for my colleagues. So I'm very happy that for the second time in such a brief time since I've been in my mandate, I have come to Bratislava. I'm against among friends, and I thank the Minister of Foreign Affairs for organizing this meeting.
Well, now switching to English. Well, Ivan, thank you for organizing this meeting. We had a fruitful discussion, but also we had a very constructive and informative discussion with the Ukrainian Foreign Minister Kuleba. Well, I've actually realized that the Czech Republic hasn't hosted a C5 meeting yet, and it was pointed out to me by some of my colleagues in a rather forceful way. And so obviously I'm more than happy to announce that I'll be inviting my C5 colleagues to Prague soon, so we can discuss free but safe travel. Because, quite frankly, we owe it to our citizens, and we have to do everything possible to kickstart a summer holiday season. I'm happy that, in principle, all C5 countries support the revival of tourism and free travel as soon as possible. We welcome the EU's commitment to having a European solution in the form of the digital green card. But in the meantime, and as an interim step, we would like to make it possible for those vaccinated from our closest neighbors to travel to the Czech Republic, as well as making it possible for Czech citizens who are vaccinated to travel freely to those countries. We're still discussing it, but please expect an announcement soon. Well, during our discussion with Minister Kuleba, I reassured him that the Czech Republic is a long-term ally of Ukraine. We stand fully committed to Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity, and we support ever closer cooperation between Ukraine and NATO, and Ukraine and the EU. Safe and prosperous Ukraine is in our mutual interest. Rising tensions, however, on the line of contact in eastern Ukraine currently pose the biggest threat to European security. We have watched with great concern the Russian military buildup in the eastern Ukraine, Crimea, and the Sea of Azov. Also, this was a test of our unity and resolve, and I dare say we passed it. Well, we call upon Russia to come back to the negotiating table with goodwill to resolve the conflict as outlined in the Minsk Protocol and Normandy 4 agreements. Thank you, Ivan, once again for organizing this meeting, and please, accept my invitation to Prague for yet another C5 meeting.
It was friendly.
Of course it was.
We pass the floor to the Foreign Minister of Hungary, Mr. Peter Szijjártó.
Good afternoon to all of you. Thank you very much, dear Ivan, to host us today here. We are happy to come together again in this format. Külön tisztelettel köszöntöm azokat, akik otthonról élőben követnek minket figyelemmel. The responsibility of the governments under the current situation is to protect the lives and the health situation of the people. But in the meantime, it is our responsibility as well to give back the possibility of normal life to our citizens. And these two are in a very, very close interdependence with each other. And there is only one tool to the success in both cases, and this is vaccination. In Hungary, we have never considered vaccines neither as of ideological nor as of geopolitical nature. We have always looked at the vaccines as they are, tools to save lives of our citizens. And maybe this is one of the reasons why we are now #1 when it comes to proportionate vaccination in Europe. We have already vaccinated more than half of our adult population. But the first time when this format was convened by our Austrian friend and colleague Alexander during the first wave of the pandemic, that was a good idea, and this platform has functioned very well. During the first and the second wave, our main job was to repatriate our citizens, to ensure transit to our people, and to keep the trade and economic cooperation alive. As, for example, from the perspective of Hungary, 16% of our trade takes place within this C5 format. And during the third wave, we had to give assistance and help to each other. We were happy and ready to send ventilators to Ukraine, to Slovakia, and we are happy to provide 40,000 vaccines to the Czech Republic at the end of May in order to help their vaccination campaign progressing. A close cooperation within Central Europe was important in the pre-pandemic time, as we performed as the growth engine for Europe. During the pandemic, we have performed very good answers and effective answers to the challenges. And in the post-pandemic, I do believe that a strong Central European cooperation will help the recharging, the restart of our economies as well. There's an international consensus saying vaccination brings security and brings protected status when it comes to your lives and healthcare situation. And I think that after one is vaccinated, we have to make sure that the one is allowed to travel freely and safely around. And we understand that the Europe-wide regulation is yet to come sometimes in the future. We do believe that bilateral agreements are necessary in this regard, bilateral or regional type of agreements, in order to allow the already vaccinated citizens to travel freely. In our case, when it comes to Hungary, we have already completed 7 bilateral agreements, among them Slovenia on the stage, where we allow our already vaccinated citizens to travel freely between the two countries. And it would be great if the Central European region could take the lead in this regard as well. That's why I urge my colleagues to extend the system of agreements of free travels for already vaccinated citizens to a Central European regional level. Hungary is ready. I understand that the proportionate vaccination is at a lower level in most of the countries, and we understand that the system of certificates have not been totally established, and we understand that some might be in the, let's say, in some previous stages of protective measures, but we do believe that those who have already received the vaccination should have the right to travel freely. And I do hope that some announcements will come even in the coming days. There's a new chance. Tomorrow we are meeting in the V4 format, in Warsaw. Hopefully some announcement will come from Warsaw, but I really do hope that our colleagues in Central Europe will be ready to complete these kind of agreements. I don't see the reason why we should not allow those citizens of ours who have already been vaccinated to travel freely between our countries. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. At the very end, I would like to ask Foreign Minister of Slovenia, Anzi Logar, to take the floor.
Thank you very much. First of all, let me thank Ivan for organizing this meeting of Central 5. In a way, it was established from the need to coordinate, so it might be as well coordinatify. And we had a very interesting discussion today. Main topic at the first part of the plenary was as well how to coordinate among us in this period between now and certificate on the EU level will be adopted. In Slovenia, we are introducing this kind of golden standard, tested, got over it, or vaccinated, that opens the additional door for using services or passing borders. And we are very open for acquiring and agreeing on either bilateral and or regional level. And quite some ministers out of here knows and are aware of need to quick agreement among us, so for the benefit of our fellow citizens as they expect this. As well, I would like to thank Ivan to bring back foreign relations to this format, to the format of Central 5. I think it was an outstanding opportunity today to speak with Foreign Minister of Ukraine in order to get in-depth view and first-hand view of situation, on their situation in the eastern part of Ukraine. And it was as well very valuable for me. As you know, Slovenia will take over the presidency of the EU. And one of the summits during our presidency will be EU Eastern Partnership Summit. So I was really glad to have opportunity to participate in this discussion. I presented my fellow colleagues, the ministers of Central 5, briefly the priorities of Slovenian EU presidency. As well, I raised several questions that are important for the Union and as well for us. And I look forward for a cooperative and supportive approach during the second half of 2021. Central 5 format is as well a format to represent our views and to reinforce our messages. So I'm as well glad that 3 ministers out of 5 will visit 2 countries of Western Balkans, Tirana and Skopje, in incoming days in order to send the message that countries that fulfilled their tasks should be rewarded with starting IGC. And we think this is in a way a right way, especially as well for the reason is during Slovenian EU presidency, as you know, there'll be informal summit on Western Balkan, where we would like to put this question on the highest possible level and to start talking about countries of Western Balkan as a region and not as each particular country. So I look forward, you gave the promise, next time, not too late, we will meet in Prague and continue discussion in the Central 5 format. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. Now I'll pass the floor for the questions. I see some ministers are not using the earphones, so I would like to ask in English. First name, Beatrice.
Good afternoon, this is Tomáš Verníček from Slovakian News Teatri. I would like to ask all of you, but it can be kind of complicated, so I will address this question only to the host minister, Korčok. You were all talking about some kind of free movement, free travel zone just before EU COVID pass. I would like to ask you about how it's going to look like. Is it going to be for just fully vaccinated people? Will the member states accept also vaccination people vaccinated in Hungary by Sinopharm or Sputnik? How is this going to work? Thank you very much.
Okay, I go in English so that colleagues can hear me. So first step in Slovakia that we need to do is to make sure that we can issue our Slovak national certificate in a one unified form. Number two, today there is a session of Consilium of Epidemiologists who are looking at the possibilities, how to organize maybe a regional arrangement. But number two, the question is as well how we are going to distribute certificates to those who already have been vaccinated, but they have not yet received the Slovak Unified National Certificate. When speaking about travel, however, the next step is establish European, but our own Slovak traffic light system by which we will identify countries across European Union and globally whether they are safe for travel. Having said that, you see that there is a number of questions that need to be sorted out. It's not for me, for foreign minister, therefore, as I have said at the beginning, I will inform our health minister who is in charge of that. And once we have clarity about those particular issues, national certificates for those who will be vaccinated, national certificate who have been vaccinated, this traffic light system, then from my perspective, and I want to say it, there would be an opportunity to come into bilateral arrangements. And your question is absolutely right. I have no answer yet to it. How will Slovakia approach and assess vaccines which have not yet been certified by European Medicine Agency? That's not for me to assess. I know that other colleagues have the same or similar questions. But there is a readiness, once again, not to wait only for the European one. If we find an arrangement which is safe, we can look at bilateral arrangements. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next question, a gentleman in the front row.
Thank you. Zoltán Szalai, Daily Děníken. I would have a question for Mr. Szijjártó and for Mr. Korczok. The Slovak Minister of Finance, Mr. Matovič, had last month a statement that Hungary is concerned about some statements of Mr. Korczok and the Slovak Ministry of Foreign Affairs. My question is is it true, and if you have discussed this question now? And my other question is that if you have discussed the question of the dual citizenship between Hungary and Slovakia. Thank you.
So those are... Teraz neviem, či mám to po slovensky hovoriť, alebo... Okay, I'll go again in English. So the first one was about me being, what, have a hostile relationship? Was it what you have in mind?
It was for Mrs. Szijjártó, but you have discussed this question.
No, we have not. We have not discussed bilateral issues today with my colleague and friend Peter Szijjártó. I am ready to meet bilaterally with Peter Szijjártó, my counterpart, because my intention is to make sure that we have good relationship, because we have good relationship with Hungary, and I'm ready to sit down and really to talk about everything that is important for our countries. So this is my fundamental attitude to it. And the second one was?
Dual citizenship.
Dual citizenship. So this dual citizenship, or rather amendment on the law on citizenship, as you know, is in the parliament in Slovakia. We are striving a solution that will allow for those who are permanently and on a long-term residence basis living in countries abroad for at least 5 years. This is how it is written in our program manifesto, that they will be allowed, once they acquire citizenship of foreign countries, to retain the Slovak citizenship. This is the draft legislation that was approved by the government, and this is the draft legislation by the government, which is now in the parliament. But let me also say that this is Slovak internal issue. Thank you.
Well, first of all, I'd like to tell you that we have been in office for 11 years now in Hungary, and I've been fulfilling this position almost for 7 years. And one of our major efforts when it comes to foreign policy was always building a good relationship with our neighbors based on mutual respect. And we have worked a lot together with our Slovakian counterparts in order to be able to say that we have never had such a good relationship between the two countries like now. And I would like to be able to repeat this sentence in the future as well. We respect the role of the former Prime Minister, current Deputy Prime Minister in building this relationship. So I will definitely never say anything bad about him because I don't have a reason for that. We respected his tenure as Prime Minister, we respect his tenure currently as Deputy Prime Minister, and we respect everything what he has done for the improvement of our bilateral relationship. And I also respect what Ivan has done for this relationship. I respect his endeavor and goal to keep this relationship on a high level of standards. That's why what we will never do, or we don't want to do, are two things. First, to be involved in domestic political debates of other countries. And number two, definitely not interfere into these debates. And if we have issues what we have to discuss, we definitely will not discuss it through media. First, we speak to each other. And thanks God, we have the chance to speak to each other pretty often. We usually use these opportunities. This time we didn't discuss bilateral issues, but there's no obstacle for that, because we have never had an issue which we couldn't have spoken about. So, and as long as we can speak about everything, I think we are on the safe side. Definitely there are issues where we still have to work on a consensus, but this is the job of politicians to work for the benefit of both of their nations, and we are ready to continue that.
Thank you. Probably the last question for the Czech television. I'm sorry.
Petr Obrovský from Czech television. I would like to ask C5 ministers, how are you satisfied with the preparation of the unified EU COVID pass? And are you sure that this instrument will come into force on time, which means the half of June or the 1st of July at the latest?
No, we are confident that it will be in place, up and running on time. Correct me, colleagues, if I'm wrong, but there is ongoing legislative work, meaning the second trialogue was concluded right now. And I think it opens the way to the adoption of that legislation, which is the first step. But then one has to see that it's up to the member states to ensure that those digital or paper certificate will be issued duly and according with that legislation on national level. So Slovakia will have its own EU COVID-19 certificate. Hungary will have the same, Austria, and so on and so on. I see, colleagues, correct me if I'm wrong, I see no obstacle at this moment for this certificate not being introduced on time.